didn't finish it. We're making a volcano.
That's what I started to do for my I can tell.
Shame!
I tell you he did, but I can tell you.
Oh my god. Oh my god, it's a human big toe.
Amazon dude! Yo! Yo, you need help?
I saw some dude was loading stuff in his truck and some dude walked in there, he's like, yo man, you need some help? And the dude's like, what are you doing here? He said something sweet.
Bloody Marys!
Hey! Oh, I missed
You be in
it.
school.
Oh! Oh, school bus game!
Oh, who was getting it?
Hey! Big dog! Hey! Where are your wires? Hey!
Hey man, hey, he's got AirPods. That man had AirPods.
That's the building. No, it's not the
I
building.
feel like they don't know where the line is.
Hey!
Yellow Marina bus.
Hey! Oh, there's a dog.
Where? Bob, do you want some back? I want.
No, you can have your bag. Adults can have your
Right here?
There's more for like
Is this an ocean?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How's everybody doing? Excellent. If I could have everyone's attention up front here for a couple of minutes. Welcome to the city, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Captain Elias. I'm going to be in charge for today's boat ride. Quickly, before we get underway, I have a few announcements to make. First, we're going to go over a couple of ground rules. I understand that this is a large student group and groups that we have with us today. Everybody's going to have fun. We're here to enjoy our time here on the Chicago River, but I do have to lay down a couple of ground rules. First and foremost, I do ask that all the chaperones
Dive right in, water pun intended, and begin this tour, as all thrilling adventures must, with a history lesson. You see, there is a reason why Chicago is considered the most architecturally distinct city in the world. And by the end of our 60 minutes together, hopefully you'll have a better grasp upon why that might be. Now, just like these river tours, the history of Chicago begins and ends with the river. It is the Chicago River we will be journeying through today. And for much of our city's history, the river has been changing, expanding, to facilitate the growth of Chicago itself. Perhaps the most dramatic change in the river would occur in 1848. This was just 10 years after the town of Chicago was incorporated. 1837, 1848 saw the state of Illinois complete construction on the Illinois and Michigan Canal, a waterway dug to connect the Chicago River down our river's south branch to the Mississippi River network, creating for the first time a direct water route between the Great Lakes, like Lake Michigan, our land, and the Gulf of Mexico to the south. Overnight, Chicago was transformed. We became a vital trading hub for the nation. We were the fastest growing city in the world. In less than 50 years, Chicago grew from a town of around 400 to a city of more than 1 million. But that growth, while impressive, was haphazard, it was unsafe. It would eventually culminate in that great calamity, the Chicago Fire of 1871, which effectively burned our city. It was a disaster. Yet, everything we'll see today, the waterfront, the bridges, the buildings and their architectural styles, all of it can trace its heritage back to this moment in time, to the rebuilding efforts that would follow the Great Fire. And understanding this, that Chicago was a city reborn in flame, forms a nice foundation for the tour we are embarking upon together. In other words, thanks for sitting through that. The folks are champs. They're actually going to see some beautiful buildings. It is important that we get the exposition out of the way early so we can have some fun, and that's what we're going to do. Let's go for a boat ride. As we make our way towards the Lakeshore Drive Bridge and the main branch of the Chicago River, directly ahead of us we can see one of the most exciting new buildings to grace Chicago's skyline. It's kind of hard to miss, even if you try. It's the building with the yellow crane on top. It's nearly capped out at its maximum height, 1,200 feet tall, about 101 stories high. Damn. Upon completion, late next summer, this will be the Vista Tower. And not only will it be Chicago's new third tallest skyscraper, third behind the Sears and Trump Towers, respectively, but it will actually hold the distinction of being the tallest building in the world, designed by a woman. Local architect, Jeannie Gang. Now, if I sound a little blasé about this, it is only because Chicago already had the tallest building designed by a woman. So we now have the two tallest. It's not a competition. If it were, we would be winning. But this building is so much more than tall. As we make our way under the Lakeshore Drive Bridge, if I could draw your attention back over to Vista, look at the outermost edges of the skyscraper. Look towards the corners, really. And you'll notice that it's a little odd. It's not straight up and down. You can see that it curves and flexes in and out. It needs these dimples, we could call them, because Vista Tower will be the tallest, thinnest skyscraper near the shore of Lake Michigan, that vast body of fresh water behind us. There are no mountains, no hills, no forests to stop wind from picking up speed as it crosses the lake's surface. That wind shear slams against our lakeshore properties, and this building will be particularly susceptible to them. It's too tall and too thin to safely sway in the wind. And so those dimples, those little curves in the side, were intended to reduce the building's profile, to cut away some of its surface area by just enough to allow wind to pass more naturally around it. Basically, there is less flat surface on this building for the wind to grip onto and push. Now, this alone is not enough to preserve the integrity of buildings like this, which is why for Vista Tower it will be working in tandem with a blow-through floor. If you look towards the very top of the skyscraper, begin working your way down by about 8 stories, you should all see a big gap like they skipped a level. That is called a blow-through floor. And when the building is sheathed in glass, it will be left open to the elements, so that strong winds coming in from the lake will simply pass through the building. It doesn't need to sway the wind. It parts the wind and lets the wind pass through it. Now, there's no doubt Vista will be lovely, will be eye-catching, but I still hold that architect Jeannie Gang's true crowning achievement is her previous Chicago skyscraper. The here we can see that this is not one, but actually 2 separate structures. They're connected to one another by a pair of little bridges. At the 3rd and 13th level, those are actually still in use today. You can cross between the 2 Wrigley buildings through those bridges. They were necessary when this was built in the 1920s because there used to be a street which passed between them. Now it's just a public plaza. When we look at buildings like this, it's a special significance to us for that reason. It was the style that rebuilt Chicago. Not all architects would approve of this focus on Europe. Rebuilding Plaza, built 1973, designed by architect Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. This is modernism. It's minimalism. It is austerity. There's nothing decorative here. It's just glass and steel in a big black box. Quite appropriately, this is known as black box or Bauhaus modernism. But there are many different varieties of modern architecture. Compare AMA Plaza with these twin curvilinear towers rising up on the right. They have been affectionately nicknamed the Corn Cob Towers, for obvious reasons. They're the Marina City Towers. They were built in 1964, designed by architect Bertrand Goldberg, a student of Mies van der Rohe. Modernism is a rejection of ornamentation, and we can see the focus of these different styles of architecture. If we could describe revivalism, Eurocentric architecture, as form following what is most beautiful, then for modernism we would amend this to be form should follow function. There is room for beauty, certainly, but beauty isn't the driving focus. These are beautiful buildings, but there's nothing decorative about them. It's just concrete in curves and circles. And those curves are a bit unusual for modernist architecture. They came about due to a disagreement between Bertrand Goldberg and his mentor Mies van der Rohe. Goldberg argued that it was unnatural to design boxy buildings. He argued, you don't see the right angle or straight lines in nature, so why would you choose to include them in architecture? To him it was a choice, one he refused, and so these buildings are curved. This is modernism through the lens of nature. Curves and circles instead of right angles and straight lines. Now throughout the tour this morning, we'll see many different approaches to modernism. From Bauhaus to brutalism, where they focus on raw, concrete 55 West Wacker Drive, that's brutalist modernism. We'll see structural expressionism too, but they're all unified by their shared rejection of ornamentation and their mutual source of inspiration, an example of which is coming up on the right. We can see a little red brick building with a clock tower. That is the Reed Murdoch Center, built in 1914, designed by George C. Nimmons. It is an example of the Chicago. Don't use that word lightly. Coolest buildings in Chicago. That thin blue glass and steel tower, the one with the tapered base. That is 150 North Riverside. It was completed a year and a half ago. Designed by Jim Getch. It needs that narrow base to exist because the lot of land it's built upon is cut across by row after row of train tracks, rail lines, cover the entire western bank of the Chicago River. These train tracks are so close together right here that the only space available to build was on a narrow strip of land in between the tracks, about 30 feet wide. That's where they built this thin base to act as a foundational core, an anchoring point from which they could expand that structure upwards and then out over the sides.